So let me give you guys a rundown about the changes that I made in my truck, okay? It's fairly simple. For the record, the only setup sheet I could find was from Pettit RC. It was an SC6.1, and it was for outdoor wet AstroTurf. So, to quote the movie Pirates of the Caribbean, it's more like guidelines, okay? So, we're going to start with the rear end of the truck, since that's where most of the changes go in the booty. So, the truck obviously comes with a sway bar. On outdoor, you'll hardly ever run that because a sway bar tightens up the rear end. Well, you want the rear end to be as individual and active as possible outdoors because it's much lower grip. So I put the sway bar back on. Obviously, for carpet, AstroTurf, whatever high-bite situation, you always go to the gear diff, because if you keep the ball diff in there, it's going to be welded by lap 2. So gear diff, and I only put 5,000 in there, you know, because I guess I'm dumb like that, because some guys are running like, you know, 20K, or I've heard some guys running like 1 million in the center of their four wheels because they don't have a slipper, which that's a whole nother story. So 5K. The ball stud positions, I didn't even touch them. All I did was I made sure they were tight. And then I went to -3 camber, rear and front. So that way it kind of calms the truck down, because when you have negative camber, it's not as grabby. Okay, so more negative camber means less traction in this situation. Let's see what else. Oh, and the big thing on the rear end, if you notice, I put the shocks on the front of the rear tower. Okay, so in order to do that, I normally run them on the rear, so you need this spacer right here to keep the body posts where they are, so you don't have to drill new holes. You obviously move the shock tower to the front side of the top of the transmission case, and then on the 6.4, we have these inserts that you simply just pull out and then turn around, and it changes the position and everything. And as far as those go, I believe for outdoor, we have 4 different adjustments, okay, on the Associated. So for outdoor, I was second from inside. For indoor, when I flipped them around, I went second to outside. Now, moving toward the front end, there's not really much I changed, other than fixing my sway bar where it broke at Nationals, but that's another story. Front sway bar should always be on there. Calms the steering down. -3 front camber. Again, ball stud adjustments. The only thing that I did was I took the shim out of the bell crank right here. So by doing that, in theory, if you move the ball stud away from the front tires, it decreases the sensitivity. So made the steering a little lazier, which for obvious reason, you got a lot of grip, you don't want the thing to be too twitchy. Now, the most important thing that I did was the shocks. Now that one was kind of a hunt, okay? So the one thing I did take from the setup sheet was using the lowest spring cups I could find, which are the zeros and Associated, okay? And not only that, but if you look very closely underneath, they are actually shaved flat. So not only are they the lowest, but you shave them flat, and they're even lower. And then one little mod that I did, if you can tell, is I took my body reamer and put a hole in the spring cup and zip-tied the spring to it. Now, let me explain that. So, say you're running around, you're running the lowest ride height you can, okay? So the spring is not always at full tension. By zip-tying it to the cup, even if it comes off the top collar here, it's always going to seat itself back. But if it comes off the bottom collar, it can actually jump offset, and it'll change your ride height in the middle of the race. You can't have that. So that's just a little trick that I do to keep the ride height as consistent as possible when you're running, you know, something with such low ride height. Which, by the way, the ride height set on the truck currently, I believe, is 17 front and rear, 17 millimeter. Obviously, we put 4 mil of shock limit in the rear, didn't limit the front. We are running the shortest shock ends that Associated provides on here. I believe the stroke on the front, if I remember, is 31 millimeter. And then, actually, I'm going to pull out my phone just so I don't give any fake news. Give me 1 second. Okay, I got it right here. So, the stroke on the front is 31 millimeter. The stroke on the rear, and by stroke, I mean the distance between the gap of the exposed shot shaft. So the rear would be 33.5 millimeter. And me being an 8-scale guy, I'm using CST oil, not the standard Imperial oil. So, on the rear, we have 2-hole 1.8 pistons, which are the stock. I don't know what fitness that is, but whatever the stock ones are, 2-hole 1.8, and it's 500 CST. The front is 2-hole 1.6 with 600 CST. And then springs, I have blue on the front, blue associated, and white associated on the rear. And then, the final thing I forgot to mention on the rear end is the C and D block pill. So the C block, we are 1 dot middle up. And on the D block, we are 1 dot middle down. So it's got all the kick up and no increased toe at all. So that's a tour of my Team Associated SC6.4 that has been converted to carpet, my very first time ever racing it. And hopefully you guys out there will benefit from the shenanigans that I have put in on this truck. Oh, very last thing, almost forgot. The most important to keep this thing from tipping, gluing the sidewall of the front tire. I'm using the J Concept Swagger. So not only did I glue the entire sidewall, but I actually glued the entire corner wall. So I've got CA dried from all the way from the rim to the very first pin. That way it doesn't dive as hard. And of course, you turn down your steering dual rate, which will help too. So again, guys, hopefully you guys can benefit from the shenanigans that I did when you want to run your two-wheel drive short course truck, your associated two-wheel drive short course truck on carpet or Astro turf. Stay tuned, you guys. Hopefully I will get a sheet filled out completely and send it to Mr. Thelke so Team Associated can put it on their website, because so far it's working really good. I just won Q1 and Q2, so that means I got the TQ overall. So going into the AA mains, we're gonna go full send. See you guys later.